Alright, coming back at y'all again with another video. This week the topic is going to be about 5 music production apps that I use to create beats on iPad. If you're interested in topics like this, go ahead, hit the subscribe button. I like to talk all things music production, whether that's music marketing, pro audio, or audio engineering. Also get feedback from all these subscribers on the channel, because a lot of you guys see me using different MIDI controllers and also see me using different software or applications to create beats. You could also follow me on Instagram at d._majormusic. Appreciate everybody that's been subscribed to the channel and the feedback that you guys are giving about the videos in general, and a lot more to come. So the purpose of this video is we're going to talk about 5 different apps that I use to create instrumentals on the iPad Pro. Music production, I would say probably I think the first Beatmaker was like maybe around 2012, and GarageBand has been around for some time. So this is kind of something that's slowly been gaining steam over time, and now music production on the iPad I think is in a really good place. There are a lot of producers. I mean, I said it on previous videos before, but I wish there were so many options. When I was learning how to make beats years ago, there wasn't really as many options. I mean, you had to pretty much buy a computer. At that time, you had to buy Reason or Pro Tools or whatever program that you record or use to create beats in, and that could get pricey over time, because one of the other things is, if you look at a comparison between a lot of the apps that are in the App Store for producers and music production, if you look at the pricing of those, so you take Korg Gadget for example, on the iOS platform or iPad OS platform, whatever you want to call it, it's $50 for the Korg Gadget app, which is well worth it. Then on the flip side, if you take a look at Korg Gadget on Mac or PC, it's $199 to purchase on there. So there you can kind of see the big difference as far as how it might be a little bit less pricey on the iPad versus on the computer. And then also you're gaining mobility by using the iPad. Not to say, because of course you can have a MacBook or laptop in general for your production on your computer. That is just something you're going to want to consider when making your decision whether you want to go with a iPad or if you want to go with a laptop or even a desktop for music production. As you can see, I got this desktop behind me as well. For me, that combination of having an iPad and a desktop worked for me. Alright, so number 5 on the list, we're going to start off with Korg Gadget. The reason I like Korg Gadget is it's going to be one of those apps. It reminds me a little bit of how Reason used to be, when you basically had all these individual synthesizers and samplers inside of Reason. Well, it has something similar when we talk about these gadgets inside of Korg Gadget. So you purchase the app by itself, which regularly Korg Gadget 2 to be exact is going to be $49, but I've seen it as low as $24.99. Typically around this time of the year, holiday season, a lot of these apps go on sale, even the gadgets inside, which are going to be the in-app purchases. They'll also usually put those on sale for 50% around this time of the year. I like it only because it's probably one of the apps that ran the smoothest on my iPad, and a lot of other Korg Gadget users can probably say the same. And on top of that, I just think that workflow wise, if I want to, like, let's just say for example on a regular work day, because I do work aside from music production, and typically I may have a little 15-minute break here and there throughout the day, 2 of them, and then I have an hour lunch. But what I like about Korg Gadget is, even if I have that limited amount of time, I can just open it right up and get going. Now the only thing with Korg Gadget is it's going to be 2 things. One, it is not compatible with audio unit plugins. So if you've had some other like audio unit purchases you made through the App Store and you want to use them inside a Korg Gadget, it doesn't happen. Maybe that's something eventually they'll move to, but who knows? It's not necessarily a deal breaker for me. The second thing is exporting the stems. Now, one of the things about Korg Gadget is you can export files into Ableton format and then import it to Ableton and then work a little bit more further on it. Or if you want to like mix it down on your computer instead of your iPad, you can do it there as well. But if you're not using Ableton and you just want to export tracks, you have to actually do them individually. So there are other apps like Beatmaker 3, for example, which I'm going to talk about next, that it allows you to export the entire session and it creates a zip for you. That way, if you want to upload it to iCloud Drive, I do also know, like, for you guys that are on BeatStars, or maybe that archive all your beats in a place and you want to keep those zip files on there. I know, like, BeatStars, the reason I brought that up is if you want to sell exclusives on BeatStars, you have to upload a zip to their website, and once you upload this zip, and it also makes it easier too. If somebody goes on that website, buys the beat, I know a lot of times I may not have access right then and there. If someone buys an exclusive from you on BeatStars, it'll have all of those stems that are associated with whatever track you upload. So that's one of the things that I like personally about Beatmaker that Korg Gadget doesn't necessarily have just yet. As I said before, it's going to be $49. Definitely don't sleep on it. One of my favorite apps personally for beat making. I would say it's probably 1 and 2 with Beatmaker as far as production for me on the iPad. Beatmaker 3, let's talk about that one next. Beatmaker 3 is probably my favorite app for production on the iPad. The reason it is one of my favorite apps to use is when it came out back in 2017, it was the first app that really allowed you to take advantage of the audio unit format, which kind of made it feel almost like a desktop, for example, how you can use VSTs on a desktop. Same thing with audio units on your iPad. And then on top of that, the built-in sampler, I like that one as well because it's user-friendly. It's very easy to do things like time stretch. You want to add fades to it. If you want to go, if you have a sample and you want to chop it up 16, 12, 8, 4, whatever you want to do. Now the only one thing I wish they kind of did, which is one of the favorite things that I like about the Segments app. Now the Segments app is actually going to be a standalone sampler that functions as an audio unit inside of other apps like Beatmaker, like GarageBand, like Cubasis. One of the things I like about the Segments app is the real-time chopping. So you can hit one of the pads and you can continue to hit each pad, based off of whatever tempo or whatever groove you're trying to get for that particular song that you're working on. As to where on Beatmaker 3, it doesn't allow you to do that. Now, that's a little thing, but I just think that it's something that you're seeing across a lot of other platforms like MPC. You can do the real-time chopping that way. I know in Machine you can do the real-time chopping that way, and a lot of other apps same way. Now the other thing I like about Beatmaker 3 is, and I can say the same about Korg Gadget, is I like the mixer, how it's viewed from left to right, like a traditional mixer. There are some other apps that don't really have that layout the same way, where you can adjust your sliders from up and down, do your panning the same way as well. Beatmaker 3 does have that. And then workflow wise, as I was talking about earlier, when you're exporting your stems, it automatically creates a zip file for you. That way, if you want to take that file and send it to iCloud Drive, or if you want to save it to an external device, you can do so in there. Next on the list, we're going to talk about Cubasis. I spoke a little bit about it earlier. Now, Cubasis, if you are also an artist and you like to record vocals, it's pretty much going to be your full-fledged DAW on the iPad. You can record vocals, you can create instrumentals inside of it. If you want to mix down your whole section with audio unit plugins, you can do that as well. One of the things that I do like about Cubasis, very similarly to Beatmaker 3 is the fact that its mixer is viewed from left to right, opposed to there are some apps that don't really have a traditional mixer look. That's one of the things that I like about just the whole presentation of both Beatmaker and Cubasis. And then just how you arrange as well, different from Korg Gadget. Now Korg Gadget, you arrange from top to bottom. I don't really personally arrange inside of Korg Gadget. I'll export those stems and I'll mix them either in Logic or one of the apps we're talking about, Cubasis or Beatmaker. Then also Cubasis, I said if you're an artist and you want to record vocals, you can do so in Cubasis. It has the ability to record audio tracks. Now you can do so in Beatmaker, but it's just a little bit more extra work in order to do so. As to where in Cubasis it's a little bit straightforward. Just get your audio interface, plug it up. The app is going to recognize that your audio interface is plugged in, and from there, record. It has compatibility with audio units. They actually have some of the Waves plugins integrated you can buy for Cubasis. The only thing is you can't use those in other apps. If you are looking for mixing audio units to use in other apps, definitely check out FabFilter and their plugins. I use the Pro Q2 and the Pro Q3 before. That's what I'm using now for mixing on my iPad. And I may start off a project mixing it down in either Cubasis or Beatmaker, and then I may export it to Logic Pro and finish it inside of Logic Pro as well. As to where you have Korg Gadget at $49, and as to where you have Beatmaker at $24.99, Cubasis is going to be more so on that $49 price point, and that is also worth it. The only one thing I wish they had in Cubasis was a sampler. You don't really have a sampler to use. Most of the time if I'm working inside of Cubasis, I'm going to use the Segments app as my sampler. And not that, I love the Segments app, by the way, but I just think that Cubasis should have some sort of sampler that you can use inside. But that really doesn't stop me. Everything else outweighs it. And I just think that even if I had Cubasis by itself, I will still be able to get a lot done in terms of workflow, being able to record music and being able to create beats inside of it. To me, actually, some of you may use Cubase on your computer. Cubasis kind of, to me, reminds me a little bit of Logic. Not exactly, because I think GarageBand and Logic have a lot of similarities, obviously because they're made both by Apple. But as far as the way you arrange, as far as the way the mixer is, as far as the way that you can use audio units, as far as the way that you can record vocals, you can do that all inside of Cubasis. So we talked about Korg Gadget, we talked about Beatmaker 3, we talked about Cubasis. Now let's move on to GarageBand. So GarageBand, I spoke briefly about in another video that I did, but don't sleep on GarageBand. If you have an iPhone or an iPad and maybe you don't want to go with any of the other apps that I was talking about, or maybe you are on a budget, definitely do not sleep on GarageBand. It is a free app, but that does not mean it sucks for making beats. If there was something, well, GarageBand really was out when I was learning how to create beats, but it was nowhere near what it is in 2020 opposed to like 15 years ago. So a lot of those same things apply that I talked about with the previous apps that I mentioned in terms of audio units, and then also the layout. I do like the layout from left to right if you want to arrange your tracks. I don't really like that up and down arrangement like Korg Gadget does. And then what I also like is, I think for a free program, free app, that GarageBand probably has one of the best sound libraries on iPad Pro. on the iOS platform or Mac. And the reason for that is inside of GarageBand, they'll actually use the Alchemy synth just like inside of Logic Pro. Now, it won't have all the sounds that were included in the version on Logic Pro, but they'll have a good portion of that library. On top of that, I did talk about the sound library. You know, if you start out, all you have is GarageBand, you can then continue to build your audio units, whether that's more synthesizers, whether that's mixing plugins, whatever that looks like. And you know, I know a few guys that's solely they produce in is GarageBand. There were a couple of songs I know, like T-Pain. There was an article online I read about him, but I believe it was his second album with I'm in Love with a Stripper. Anyhow, there was a story about how he was at a studio and the electricity went out. He continued to create on his iPad inside of GarageBand. I mean, you think about how many, you know, if you go back, some of you that might be a little younger may not remember this, but if you want to go back to when T-Pain was kind of, you know, on top and doing his thing, not say that he ain't no more, but he had one time where you looked on TV and you saw videos, he was doing features here and there for everybody. He was really rolling. He actually won a couple of awards back then for that. So you really think about possibly Grammys or any kind of award won for projects made inside of GarageBand on an iPad. I mean, that's real. There are a lot of producers out there. I do know, like, I think it was one of Kendrick Lamar's producers. He made a lot of his beats on iPhone. So it is very possible in GarageBand on your iPhone or iPad to create some pretty dope beats. A couple of things that when it comes to GarageBand, I prefer using other programs most of the time for production. One, the interface for like mixer and volume and panning and things along those lines. If you're a first-time user, it may be a little bit difficult for you to find some of those along the left side of the screen. I prefer, as I was saying earlier, the traditional mixer from left to right. On GarageBand, they're going to have individual volume sliders on each track, so you can adjust that way. And then the same thing when it comes for panning, they're going to have a little slider that goes from left to right for panning, but you got to kind of gauge, you know, hearing it. You can't really see a percentage or anything like that. So little things like that I wish would get cleaned up when it comes to GarageBand. If you're, again, first-time music producer and you're looking for a great program to start making beats in, don't sleep on GarageBand. So we talked about Korg Gadget, we talked about Beatmaker, we talked about Cubasis, we talked about GarageBand. The next one will be iMaschine by Native Instruments. If you've been following me for a long time and you've been seeing a lot of my videos, then you obviously know that I'm a Maschine user. I've been using Maschine pretty much since the first generation, before they started doing like the different colored pads. I have a lot invested into Native Instruments when it comes to sound libraries, expansions, even gear itself. I have Maschine Micro, I got the complete control here, and I got Maschine Jam right behind me as well. iMaschine, you can get smaller, light versions of those different expansions that you have on your setup on your computer. I like it only because a lot of the interface to me is very Native Instruments like. Just like Korg Gadget, you can pretty much just open up iMaschine and get to creating right away. The only one thing is a little different. So on your computer, you can actually use VSTs inside of Maschine. Now, if we're talking iMaschine on your iPad or iPhone, it does not allow you to use audio units. So that's the one thing that I wish they would change. The other thing is the interface for arranging. Now, personally, I don't arrange on iMaschine. I do arrange sometimes on Maschine on my Mac, but most of the time I'll export into Logic and then mix down my project from there. The arranger inside of iMaschine, I don't feel is very close to the desktop version or the computer version of Maschine. What I like to do though mostly is you can actually export those files in Maschine format to where you can finish up that project in Maschine on your computer. So that's something I definitely do sometimes as well. I got kind of put down on it years ago, and the fact that true, you can't put your whole library for Maschine expansions on your iOS or iPad OS device. However, you can still use some of those expansions inside of iMaschine. And the thing I like about the expansions is they're going to be anywhere from 99 cents, maybe $2 at most. Don't sleep on iMaschine for music production. Some people I know it's their favorite as well. I do think there are a little bit of limitations with it, but as I said before, I mainly use iMaschine kind of as a sketchboard for my ideas, and then I export the format into Maschine and I'll finish it on my computer. iMaschine is going to run $4.99, I believe, in the App Store. It might run $9.99, but I think it's anywhere from $4.99 to $9.99, which is really good still. Let's do a quick recap. So, talked about 5 different apps that I use for music production on iPad: Korg Gadget, Beatmaker 3, GarageBand, Cubasis, and iMaschine. Now, out of all of those, the only one that is going to be free is GarageBand. One thing I didn't mention about GarageBand, it does have its own sound library, but if you are a GarageBand user and you check inside of the app itself where it's going to say our sound library, you're going to want to check there. If you see a little red one, that typically means that they've updated GarageBand with some new sound libraries. So one of the other things I like about GarageBand is the fact that you don't have to pay a little bit more for expansions as to where you do in things like Maschine, Beatmaker even. Now the one thing also about Beatmaker is they did a really good job of coming out with these expansions when it first came out, but haven't seen much of that in a while. So Beatmaker 3, if you're really listening out there, the developers, go ahead, make some partnerships. Let's get some new sound libraries in there, because I love what you guys are doing. I enjoy using Beatmaker 3, and I know a lot of people that's watching this video as well enjoy using Beatmaker 3. We talked about Cubasis. Now in Cubasis, it does have a really good sound library. The only thing that you're gonna have to pay for some of the add-ons. There are some of the like drum machines you can get as far as expansion. They are not really they don't really do expansions to the degree of Beatmaker 3 or GarageBand. So you pretty much have to use audio units for all your external sounds and things of that nature. That's gonna be it for now. I just wanted to come through to talk about 5 different music production apps that I use to create beats on the iPad. Check those out, as I said throughout the video. Usually late in the year, if you're watching this after the holiday season of 2020, you may find some of these apps on sale along the way. Check them out. Definitely, if you're looking to get into iOS production, I encourage you to try it. You never know how you're gonna like it. And if you have any questions or any comments about this video, go ahead, leave them in the comment section. And you can follow me once again on Instagram at d.majormusic.